Hello, Jeffrey Baffle here, HumbleBumble Chess Services. Hang on for one quick second here. Ooh. Okay, all right, hi. This is Thursday, May 2020. What is it, 28th or 29th? 28th. Going to demonstrate a positional pawn sacrifice. And this is from a game in 1992, so a long time ago. This is from a postal tournament, and this was a postal rating tournament. And if you'll notice, the pieces are inverted, so the notation here is wrong. You know that when black's at the bottom, this is 7 and 8, so I'm going to be saying algebraic notation based on black being on the bottom. So if you look at these coordinates, they're set for white to be on the bottom. I'm sorry, that's just the way the demonstration board is set up. Okay, so my opponent's rating, postal rating at the time was 2008. Mine was 2193. And it is E4, C6, D4, D5, ED, CD, and C4. This is the Panov-Botvinnik attack. Back when I used to play the Caro Kann, this gave me a lot of trouble. I had 3 losses in this opening, and so in the hands of a person who knows what they're doing, it is a dangerous, dangerous opening. So yeah, Panov-Botvinnik attack, and so knight f6, c5. Now this is a violation of some principles. Almost every move is going to violate some principle, but this is a violation of releasing the pressure on the center too early. But what White's idea is that he's going to be able to expand on the queen side and get something going there, while black is not going to be able to do anything to counterbalance that. But as you can see, black has his counterplay almost immediately. So he goes e5, knight c3, e takes d, queen takes d4. So basically what white is relying on is that he will be able to control the d4 square with pieces and still have this 3-2 pawn majority, where he can maybe force a passed pawn or something and get something going. So bishop to e7, bishop to e3, castles, rook to d1. So as you can see, White's concentrating a lot of power on that d4 square, because that d4 square has to be held. If his pawn majority is going to advance safely, then that d4 square has got to be held as kind of like the fulcrum of this going forward, so this can't get him. Okay, so knight c6, queen a4, and now here's the positional pawn sacrifice, and that is d4. So black's idea is he's castled and better developed. It's worth a pawn to open up lines and open up the center. At a minimum, he would probably get the 2 bishops in return for a pawn, and white has a lot of moves to go before his king gets in safety. So bishop takes d4, knight takes d4, and then rook takes d4. So white has won a pawn here, but immediately black can continue his development. Now he's getting his rooks connected. He's putting pressure on this far advanced pawn. What can white do? Well, he has to support it b4, and classic Nimzovich kind of thing, attack the pawn chain. This is a pawn chain, attack it at its base. A4, I'm sorry, A5, A3, bishop to G4, queen to C2, A takes B4, A takes B4, and then queen E5 check. Knight GD2. As you can see, white is still a pawn ahead, but his pieces are not cooperating effectively. So that's part of the compensation that black got for the sacrifice pawn. It's very rare for black to be able to sacrifice the pawn. I think you'll find that even if you put this on the engine, that move the 10th move for black d4 is a sound pawn sacrifice. So bishop takes e2, knight takes e2, and then rook a1 check. Rook to d1, and knight e4. Rook takes a1, queen takes a1, knight to c1, rook to d8. So as you can see, all black's pieces are cooperating, whereas half of his white's army is still not doing anything to help him. Okay, bishop to e2. He's close to getting developed. And now rook to d2, and queen to c4, and rook takes e2. This is one of the things I like to do is basically an exchange sacrifice to keep the king in the center and to try to get an attack going. So king takes e2, queen to b2 check, king e3, queen f2 check, king takes e4, king takes g2 check, king to d3, queen takes h1, queen f4, h6, knight to b3, and then queen to b1 check. And it's at this point my opponent basically stopped responding and was forfeited on time. Forfeiting on time in the old days in correspondence chess would take about 2 to 3 months, because you had to send a repeat move, and then you had to tell the United States Chess Federation that that repeat had not been acknowledged, etc., etc. So, but I think this is pretty much of a winning position. You know, white's king is just too exposed. So yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting game there. And I do want to let you know that this line that we saw in this game came from a book. This is an older book from the late 80s, early 90s, an opening repertoire for the attacking player. On page 58, it says that you know, it doesn't play my pawn sacrifice, but it does play. It concludes with a comment: when black will have no adequate means of preventing the eventual advance of white's queenside majority. As you can see, my pawn sacrifice d4 cut across that plan and gave me good dynamic play. I hope you learned something from that. One of my best games. Have a great day. Thanks for watching the video. Bye-bye.